Hi, my name is Johan. I'm one of the co-founders here at Toolbox, and I'm very happy today to have Bill Brown here from OnePath. He's the CMO over there. Hi, Bill. How are you going?
I'm doing well, Johan. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. And what exactly do you guys do these days? Like, what is OnePath? I know you more from ServiceTitan hacks, So maybe
Yes.
tell me what's OnePath and how does that fit in with the rest of what you're doing?
Yeah. So ServiceTitan Hacks is a Facebook group that I started, maybe about a year and a half ago now. And we
Hmm.
have 7,500 members. And
That's a lot.
from that, it is, yeah, it's a good amount. I think that there's just a couple of ServiceTitan groups that have more members than that. When I started it, I didn't think that it would get that much traction. And really, I wasn't super worried about it when I started it. But through that, I had I'd say about 6 months after I started it, ChatGPT really came out on the scene. And I really took to that and started applying AI to my heating and air conditioning business and making products and services that worked with Service Titan and ChatGPT. And through that, I found that this is what I wanted to do rather than be an HVAC contractor. So I
Okay.
sold my heating and air conditioning company and joined OnePath. And what we're doing is building a AI agent based CRM, which that's a lot of
I mean, a lot of people say ServiceTitan is their CRM. So how does this
yeah.
fit in with that?
Well, a CRM is end-to-end customer relationship management,
Yeah.
which is designed for the moment that a prospect comes into your funnel. And Service Titan's really an FSM, which is field service management, which was designed for when someone is a customer and you're going to be doing scheduling with them and dispatching and jobs and invoicing and everything. It really wasn't designed for marketing first. Whereas CRMs are like Salesforce and HubSpot, they're used by companies like Macy's and everything like that. They really don't have field service
And
or jobs they need to
Toolbox.
go through. Yeah, and Wink,
We
you
use
guys use
HubSpot.
that
Yeah.
as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
use HubSpot, right? So they're a little different. They have some things that cross over, but for the most part, you have Service Titan, which is an FSM, trying to add some CRM capabilities to it, whereas a CRM doesn't do the field service management. It
Yeah.
would have something like ticketing, where you have tech support, but nothing where you're sending a technician to a job.
Yeah. I've actually seen a field service module add-on for Salesforce, but
Hmm.
it's not, you wouldn't want to run any decent sized business on that. I think it's very
Yeah,
much an
you can
afterthought.
tell that's not their core
Which
competency,
is
right?
similar, right? It's similar how FSM doesn't really, it only does the CRM bits so, I think, So I
Hmm.
think there is a
Yeah.
huge um, thirst for knowledge around, marketing out there that
Hmm.
we've seen amongst trade service companies. And so, yeah, that was our topic today is
Hmm.
marketing and profitability through marketing. So I thought, who better than to get Bill on here? Because we had a
Thank you.
really good chat. And I know you've spoken to our marketing manager in Orlando when Pantheon was on.
Hmm.
And, the feedback I heard was really good. So we're going to pick your brain a little bit today. So thanks again for being here.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Okay. So I think let's set the stage first because, we've just spoken about the difference between CRM and FSM. People also get a little bit confused sometimes around what's the difference between sales and marketing and whatever. So let's focus on marketing today. I think
Hmm.
in your mind, and especially how it relates to home services business, what does that entail? Where does it start and where does it end?
Marketing, I believe, starts with your brand. So,
Mhm.
what message are you trying to send out into the market? And how are you going to make people feel from the customer's experience? So, you can send out a message that says, I'm fun, or I'm have high quality, or you could send out a message that, if you have just a white service van that has a Times New Roman font on it that just says heating and air conditioning, affordable heating and air
Yeah.
conditioning. What you're sending out to the market is that I am inexpensive, I'm cheap. And
Yeah.
so I believe all marketing starts with the brand. And then as we go through that, I mean, really everything comes back to that. Like, what experience do you want your customers to have? And what experience do you want your employees to have as being part of the brand? And then sales is part of that as well. So it needs to be consistent through and through.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's good. And so your focus has been on like these trade businesses, right? And
Hmm.
so, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges that these businesses face today? Like,
Yeah,
in terms of, the day to day of it, but also in terms of measuring the results and the data around it.
sure. So I've I owned a heating and air conditioning company for 12 years and recently sold it just a couple of months ago. So the challenges that I'm going to go over are the challenges that I experienced and ones that I had heard other contractors have experienced.
Yeah, that's good.
When it comes to marketing data, I believe there's two main issues with it. Um, One, the data is usually incomplete, so it's hard to calculate things like return on ad spend or customer acquisition cost per channel. Um, the digital marketing companies you hire will provide you with some of those numbers as far as like what you spent per channel and what you spent per click, but then actually taking that and following it through all the way through the customer and attributing revenue to it can be a really arduous process. And so with that, it's difficult for contractors to keep up with it, and the data ends up becoming incomplete. And then the second thing is that because humans are involved, the data is also inconsistent. So
Yeah.
when businesses switch from one digital marketing company to another, or they, have staff turnover, the the data, sometimes there's gaps in it. And I've seen this myself in my own company. And that makes it really difficult. So ultimately, contractors end up making marketing decisions based upon gut feelings and emotions
Yeah.
rather than reliable, complete data. And finally, that really makes it dangerous in these seasonal, cyclical businesses because your emotions will kind of go up and down with the season and with the demand.
Yeah, like it's going to be a hot summer, so HVAC, let's drop some
Yep.
flyers or something, right? And
And it's 95 degrees, and you're like, wow, my marketing is working. I'm doing great.
yeah,
And It, I mean, is it really, or the is it just the peaks of demand season? So
yeah, yeah.
it takes
You
more
probably didn't even
accurate
need any
data.
marketing
What's
at that
that?
point. You probably didn't even need any marketing at that point.
That's true. Yeah, you will generate excess leads if you're a great marketer, which means prioritization of working for the customers that are most likely to like the services you provide and have a good experience. So customers that are attracted to your brand, it's really important when you have excess leads to be able to just go to those customers and
Yeah,
send the ones that you don't want down the street. It's not like you're being rude to them or anything. You just um, know that they're walking into Nordstrom, which is your store, and they probably want Target. So you
yeah,
might want to send them to Target, if that makes sense.
yeah. And you can, I guess, you can measure these excess leads or traffic, as you want to call it, and that's how you grow your business as well, right? I mean, you can
Hmm.
say like, okay, well, there's now an extra opportunity here that we can go after. Um, so I like the bit you're talking about gut feel that does ring true for me from what I've seen in some of our clients' businesses.
Hmm.
It seems a lot of times that there's like one person at the business who's been tasked with marketing
Everything.
in
Yeah.
quotes, right? And yeah, and it's like probably one of their duties.
Hmm.
I don't always see that in other industries. It seems to be a very trades and contractors kind of thing. Why do you think our industry here has been so slow to adopt, the more modern tools out there? I mean, obviously this is something that you guys are trying to fix, but yeah, well,
Hmm.
give me a bit of the history there.
I think that the larger contractors have adopted these, and that's how
Mhm.
they got to be large contractors, right?
Yeah,
And the small guys, I think this probably happens in most small businesses. The small guy, the owner, is the technical person who could do the work. And from what I've seen, owners do too much. They're not great at delegating it. And
yeah,
so their core competency is not marketing, it's not answering the phones in a call center, it's not accounting, it's hiring and retaining technicians and doing great service. And rather than um, sub that out or hire that out, they try to do it themselves, or they bring somebody in that they can't train to do it. So when I first started, you hire someone and it's your first hire and you're hoping that this person's going to provide relief for you because you're working yourself to death.
yeah,
And with that, you're hoping that they come in and they have all the skill, they can do everything that you don't want to do and everything that you're not good at. And that's just it's a pipe dream, right?
yeah, yeah,
And you bring them in, you're like, all right, you got marketing. And how hard could it be? I could do it. I can fix a furnace, right?
yeah.
And you give them no resources, no training, and figure it out. And I mean, I've done that to staff before and everything, and you're not going to get great results from that. And so the smaller guys, it's not that they're really don't want to have great marketing data and be able to adopt these things. They're just overwhelmed by the amount of things you have to do in your company.
Yeah.
And it's not very easy just to press a button and have these things just start working in your business, right?
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And yeah, you don't want to go from one problem to now having two problems, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
An HR problem. Um,
Hmm.
okay, so we're talking very abstractly about data at the moment, but let's dig into some specifics. So, what are the values that people should be keeping an eye on? I mean, people always say, like, "Oh, my ROI or my return on ad spend," but
Hmm.
is it really just that, or are there, like I don't know, how do you guys manage it, or how do you see it on how to keep on top of things?
Yeah. So obviously, from my feeling today, is there's too many KPIs and too many metrics.
Yeah,
Just look at the reporting that they have in ServiceTitan, and there's what, like 50 or 60 reports that are
yeah,
standard that are included. And if you have a 15, 20 million, $30 million company, then you have, 15 people looking at those reports, and each of them can look at two or three and get what they need out of it. But when you're a guy that has maybe a couple managers, how do you look at 30 reports each and go, okay, what do I do with all this? And
yeah.
then
It's
not
overload,
even
right?
necessarily trust the data, right? So that
Yeah,
you're not sure if the data is accurate and there's too much of it, which is like it's just overwhelming to digest all that, and we get analysis paralysis, right?
yeah,
And so we have to prioritize what we look at first and what contractors end up doing is just looking at their bank account balance. Do I have money in the bank or do I not?
Yeah.
Right.
Money coming in, money going out. Exactly.
And I mean, if
Yeah.
you're doing everything right, ultimately cash generation is what a business is going to provide, right? But
Yeah.
if things are not going right, you're like, where are they going wrong? And so
But
you
even if,
have to have
yeah.
a very timely, accurate income statement every month, and that's also something that contractors are very they struggle with a
But
lot.
but even if it's going well, you might be leaving cash on the table, right? So
Right. Even if it's going well, there's always, um, you know, there could be a small percentage of things that are leading to lost money. I don't know anyone who says my profit's good enough. I don't need to make any adjustments. Right.
yeah.
So there's always something that you can save money on, and or you can increase your communication skills where you can, get higher revenues, get higher tickets and things like that. But ultimately, having a departmentalized income statement with hitting the KPIs for labor cost, equipment cost, and gross profit are minimums, right? If you don't have that, then you don't even know where to dive in, right?
Yeah.
Marketing
Okay.
costs go below the line into your overhead expenses, and contractors would, they'll spend a certain percentage on new customer acquisition and retention and things like that. But if you're not making the gross profit dollars that you need, you're it doesn't matter how many leads you have coming in, you could be losing money on those leads. So spending more money to get into homes and acquire customers where you don't hit those profit goals or margins you need makes it a waste anyway. So,
So
you know,
that's your golden KPI that you talk, like the profit at the end of the day, right?
yeah, it really is, right? Am I hitting profit? And then I look at the big expense categories
Yeah.
and I look at them in detail quarterly and I say, all right, is this providing, I'm spending this money, is it making my customers happier? Is it retaining employees and making them happier? And if those two things are happening, usually it's a good thing for the company.
Yeah. How do you distinguish between, there's some marketing activities where it's very much, you know, I did this, there's a specific number people are going to call, and I can track I spent this much and I got this back. But then there's the stuff like branding, which is this
Mm-hmm.
nebulous concept. Do you have any like rules of thumb in how to divide your spend, between getting new wraps for the van compared
Mm-hmm.
to like doing pay per click, for instance?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's different for each market, each
Mhm.
contractor, and each trade. So I've talked to contractors who are plumbing contractors in the Midwest who do pay per click and have great results, and then talk to a plumber in the South who does it with the same marketing agency and doesn't have great results. So unfortunately, to get your marketing right, you have to have the money to test it
Yeah.
and find out what doesn't work and get rid of that. And what does work, keep doing it. Now, something like branding, you can't directly attribute revenue to it, but you can take that and use that for customer acquisition cost. So for example, let's say you spend $25,000 on a brand and on wraps for your vehicles.
Yep.
Let's just say you bought 5 wraps for vehicles, they were 5,000 each, right?
Yep.
And you're going to have the trucks for 5 years. So you could say, all right, the those trucks are going to give me impressions of my brand around the city, and I believe it's going to lead to new customers. I mean, that's why you're going to wrap your truck, not just to spend 5 G's on a wrap, right? So
Exactly. Yeah.
you could put that into your customer acquisition cost, right? So you spent $7,500 this year on wraps, you know, 25 grand over the next 5 years or what have you. Forgive my math, But and you could say, all right, I got 1,000 new customers, and here's how much money it cost me to get them. So I just split it up at the very top end between new customer acquisition, marketing, and retention.
Yeah.
So things like my email marketing is retention. And there's some, so the cost of something like MailChimp or Constant Contact. There's retention, by the way, is much less expensive than new
Yeah.
customer
Yeah. They
acquisition.
always say that. Yeah.
But you can take your entire marketing spend, subtract your retention costs, see how many clients you worked for the first time during that period, and say, this is how much it costs for me to get a client. And then from there, you can say, one thing that I like to do is understand lifetime value as over time, right? So
Yeah.
I know that when I have a client come in through Google My Business and they need an air conditioning repair, and their air conditioner is between 10 and 15 years old, based upon us asking them that, I know that's worth $2,900 in revenue within the first 30 days. So I know that's the average of what I'm going to get in revenue from that client. But I also know that in 3 years, I'll get, 3 times that amount of revenue from them. I know in 5 years that we'll
Yeah.
start to reach the point where I've extracted all the lifetime revenue out of them. Um, so get your lifetime value and your customer acquisition cost, the LTV CAC ratio,
Yeah.
and try to make your marketing decisions based upon that. It's thinking really wide and long term. And then the specific strategies you use are just going to have to come from testing them to see what works.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like there are some real metrics that are better to measure
Hmm.
longer term effects, so like the
Yeah.
branding, or we better training for our technicians, I mean, that's
Hmm.
that's something. So
Yeah.
for those, you look at return rates, right? And
Yeah.
subscriptions even, and like you say, lifetime value. And
Hmm.
then the shorter kind of the real ROI type ones are
Hmm.
for more short term things. So I come from an inventory management background
Hmm.
for large companies like Coca-Cola and Heinz and Mars, and uh, we used to build reports for them where you can kind of see that there's a trend, a growth trend,
Hmm.
which is like, yeah, the base things you're doing, how's that doing? But then, as you promote things and run ads, there'll be these little bumps on that line, but you can still see the underlying
Hmm.
line growing. And I think it's probably very similar, for this business, right?
Yeah. I mean, you have to give your marketing a chance to be successful. So if you're sending out direct mailers, you can't send them out once and expect good return and measure that and say, did it work this
Yeah.
time? You need to send it out you need to give it at
Yeah.
least a year, 10 mailings. And
Yeah.
then
They
maybe it'll
always
take
say like
another
seven,
year.
someone needs to see your name 7 times before they'll
Yeah,
even react, right? So,
that's right. So for me, I know that I've cut off specific marketing campaigns and channels too quickly because I was impatient. So I didn't really think of it like, all right, every time I get a customer through this channel, it's going to cost me $300. And because I'm getting tune-ups that are $49 or $99, it's going to take a little bit longer to realize the customer lifetime revenue. And so I was impatient with the results, almost like a day trader of marketing, rather than buying an index fund and
yeah,
waiting for it to bear fruit.
that's a
So
great analogy. Yeah.
I just I've done I've cut marketing that, looking back, I saw that it was working. So for example, contractors have a really negative feeling about Angie's List, well,
Yeah.
or Home Advisor, whatever their name is today, right? And what I did is I went back and downloaded all the leads that I got from Angie's, and they gave me their name, they gave an address. Not all the time was there an email or a phone number, but what I did was um, wrote a little automation that looked at their address and kind of sliced it up and matched it to customers in my database, and then attributed those customers to coming from Angie's. And I could
Okay.
see where there were many customers that weren't correctly attributed to Angie's. And I looked, I said, this is all I've spent on Angie's, and this is how much they brought in. And the ROI was a lot higher than I thought it was, because and what would happen is we would go to their home and for a repair, and it might be marked as Angie's List for the customer for the marketing channel. And then a year or two later, they would buy a $15,000 system from us, and the marketing channel would say existing customer,
Yeah.
right? Well, they
Which not
are.
really, right?
They
Exactly.
are, because we did have to
Yeah.
retain them, so we had to
Yeah,
spend some
true.
money, but you really have to keep that original campaign in mind and say, oh, I just know that the Angie's List people are going to take longer to bear fruit.
Yeah.
So it slows down your marketing decisions and makes you think longer term.
Yeah, so that's one of the things we do here at Wink in our reporting module specifically is it allows you to you could build a report that sees lifetime Angie's List, right? And then also,
Hmm.
you know, return or direct, customers, and it's really about managing that data. And in reporting, we always say garbage in, garbage out, right? So
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
very important to have that foundation correct. So maybe talk to me about what techniques or what processes do you use or recommend to people to start cleaning up their marketing data. You talked about
Hmm.
digital automation, which sounded cool, but just how do you get this foundation right so that you can then build upon it?
Well, you definitely have to audit your processes to make sure the data going in is accurate and complete, right? And in ServiceTitan, what I would do is I would set up a what I called an error report.
Yeah.
And so, for example, let's say that we went out and this isn't marketing data. This is just another example.
Any data.
We
Yeah.
went out and it was a $0 job, and we brought in no revenue. We had no sales, but the job type was a cooling diagnostic, and the customer was not a did not have our maintenance agreement. Well, that shouldn't exist. There shouldn't be a $0 diagnostic. So I would set up a report that all it did, and it was titled $0 diagnostics. And that's all that was in the report. And it would send me that data if there was a $0 diagnostic on there. So it wouldn't send me a report that was just a bunch of data. It would only send me a report of information that mattered.
Yeah.
And so when I saw the $0 diagnostic report come in, then it would have a line item that says, this is the job. You need to look at it. It would be like an action item. And I did that. I probably had like 25 reports like that. So
Yeah.
every time I found where there was something that we could put into the system that was garbage, I said, all right, how do I catch this and make sure it doesn't continue to happen? And then I would go back and fix the issues in ServiceTitan, but I had to do it through their API and things like Zapier in order to fix it in bulk.
Yeah.
But once I got everything fixed and cleaned up, then I made sure that my office was keeping it good in real time. And I still have them here, two monitors. I had those, I had those reports cycling through on my monitors, and the error report, which I don't have anymore because I sold my company,
Yeah.
would be only come up if there were any problems with it. So it would say
Yeah.
$0 diagnostics 3. And I'd go, the office must have not looked at those yet. And eventually that would go off of my dashboard as it was fixed. So you just have to set up a rigid but easy and reproducible process, repeatable process to fix these kind of things, right?
Yeah, I mean, we build a lot of those. That's
Hmm.
actually one of our philosophies as well. Although we don't call them error reports, we call them
Yeah,
exception reports.
there you go. Right,
But
Aaron.
but
Yeah,
yeah, it's
for
the
sure.
same thing, right? You want to highlight
Hmm.
in big bold red, like
Yeah.
something here needs attention, and like you say, it should only show the exceptions,
Yeah.
because we do it for everything, even commission calculations. We're like, hey, there's no split on this job, so someone probably missed it. Or like you say,
Hmm.
hey, there's no marketing channel or say salesperson assigned to this. Or you can, I mean, in Wink, it's a bit like a spreadsheet. You can just put a formula. If this value
Hmm.
is
Yeah.
outside of these bounds, or it's not one of these correct values, then just highlight it to the person. And interestingly, we people come to us a lot of times and they say, I want to automate my processes, build us some automations. You mentioned Zapier, Wink has an
Hmm.
automation module as well.
Yeah.
And we actually tell people start with these error slash exception reports because
Hmm.
there's an action, linked to it. Like if this thing tells you something, each row needs an action to fix it. So the first step is to just do it by hand.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
you see this come in and then you see it. And then the next step is, okay, when you trust this exception report, if you always have to go and fix it in the same way, now you can get a computer to do it. You can get Wink or Zapier or something to just, um,
Yeah.
when you
Can't
create an
automate a
action,
bad
it's literally
process,
what it's
right?
called in there, right? An action,
Yeah.
right? And
Right.
do that. So maybe talk to me about automations. What cool stuff have you built over the years that, or you've seen people build
Man.
that help in this way?
Man, I'll tell you what, before ServiceTitan, I used ServiceMate, which you're
Yeah,
familiar with, which is an
very familiar
Australian
in
company.
Australia. Yeah.
And ServiceMate doesn't have great reporting. So I connected Wink to
Yeah.
ServiceMate and started using Wink. Man, I don't even know. How long have you guys been around?
About 10 years.
So I bet I started using it 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And and brought in all of that data together. And so man, I just lost track a little bit because it just took me back. It took me back to putting all that stuff together. I can see
The
the
good old
reports
not
and
so good days. Yeah.
see the automation, see the days of simplicity, right? I can see
Yeah.
the old days. So I'm trying to think of what cool automations that I've done with ServiceTitan. So one of them that I did, which is a little besides that error report, because it was an automation and it took the report and put it into a Google Sheets file
Hmm.
that linked them all together that provided a dashboard. So that was before I even knew that Wink connected to ServiceTitan. So I
Yeah.
built that out with Zapier back in the day. 2022, so it wasn't that long ago. But
It's long. It's long in tech days.
it is. Yeah. It seems like it's been a long time. It was pre AI, right?
Yeah.
One of the zaps that I created was a bulk update tool. And so when I would download a report from ServiceTitan, and for example, there was ones where the tags were incorrect on it in the in the location. And so I fixed the tags in for maybe 1,000 locations,
Yeah.
and then set up a zap that would go into the Google Sheet and update all those customer locations in ServiceTitan and fix that in bulk because you can't edit tags in bulk in ServiceTitan. I did the
No.
same with lead sources. So for marketing data, there's a campaign that you can tie to a job. Well, a lot of those, when I brought in my data from ServiceMate to ServiceTitan, it said campaign was imported default campaign. And that was meaningless to me. So I dug out all the data from ServiceMate and bulk updated that into ServiceTitan to get all of those things accurate. So the bulk updating tool was pretty cool. And then when ChatGPT came on the scene, I I switched over from using Zapier to make.com for my automations because Zapier was costing me like $700 a month. I was using it so much, and created a tool that would take call recordings from ServiceTitan and transcribe them into a summary, and
Okay.
then pull the sentiment out of the call, and then upload that summary and sentiment back into the ServiceTitan job. So rather than a line item that just says, here's a 4-minute call, it would tell me what the call was about and if the customer was happy or not.
Yeah, a little
And
smiley face or a sad face.
yeah, it actually
Yeah,
would have a
yeah,
smiley
yeah,
or like a neutral one, with the
yeah.
line just straight
Flat mouth.
across.
Yeah,
And when it was a negative sentiment, it would send me a message in Google Chat because we used Google apps for our business. And it would say, hey, there's a negative sentiment call. And it had a link to the recording, and I would listen to it. And we we were able to save some customers and maybe prevent some bad reviews by addressing things where the customer didn't specifically ask to speak to a manager, but
yeah,
they weren't happy.
yeah,
And when I operated my company remotely for the last 4 years, I lost the that visibility in understanding the conversations that the customers and CSRs were having because I wasn't there and I wasn't going to listen to phone calls. I mean, I
not
found
hundreds of them. No,
there's
exactly.
only 6% of phone calls where there was a negative sentiment. I'm
Yeah,
not going to listen to I'm not going to find the 6 out of 100.
yeah,
I don't even know where to look for that. So it was really helpful, and that was the first integration that I built out that I offered to ServiceTitan customers, and they really like it. And the retention of that product has been really high because it's so simple, right? I
yeah,
find that automations and tools that you make that are the best are the most simple. If it's complicated and requires a bunch of people to understand how it works, it's not going to get traction, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we built, I mean, I'm a software developer, so
Hmm.
I do like keeping things simple and with a single purpose. So that's
Hmm.
our philosophy, or I try to convey to our
It's
staff.
tough though, right?
Yeah,
Because yeah, it's tough.
yeah, when we're trying to build automations for our clients, we say, look, let's start with one single thing, and it does that one thing.
Hmm.
Whether it's importing vendor invoices and matching them to your
Hmm.
price book, do one thing, right? And then you can
Yeah.
build on that and build another thing. And then you can go respond to,
Hmm.
people's reviews to your jobs, and that kind of thing. And but
Well,
there's
you
so
want to
many
fix
new sorry, go on.
you want to fix everything, right?
Yeah, of
So you
course.
talk
Yeah.
to a contractor and you say, "I want to automate everything." Well, yeah, but you know,
I do
there's
too.
the
Yeah.
there's the Pareto principle, right? Which says that
Yeah.
80% of the problems that you have come from 20% of the items, 20% of the quantity of problems, right? So if you fix those 20%, then you get the benefit of 80% of all the success.
So
And
how do you
so,
how do you
go ahead.
identify those high impact, low hanging fruit?
Mm, that's a good one. So if it's one of the things that I liked to do when I had my company, I probably still continue this, is I keep a lot of notes about the things that I've experienced. I just keep them on my iPhone. Now I summarize them better with ChatGPT, but I got this from my quality engineering days in my 20s. And so what I after I got my heating and air conditioning degree, I went and worked for an air conditioning manufacturer and found out that I really liked the quality engineering side of it, which was creating a process that generated a predictable result over and over again. And
Yeah.
I did field quality, and I had to work with a software company in order for to right, I got somebody knocking on the door here. It's always fun. I had to give a specification to a software company on creating a software that would enable our technicians in the field to do consistent, repeatable work. Right,
Yeah.
so kind of similar to the way ServiceTitan is. Sorry, I might have to pause this thing. I got dogs barking, the door ringing. This is the home office, Johan.
Yeah.
This is how it is.
That's the
Let's
new
get back
studio
on track.
behind you. It looks really nice.
No, thank you. I worked hard on it, but when I'm not sitting in front of the computer, I like to go out in my garage and build things and stuff like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
and try to get my hands dirty. But I spend a lot of time, maybe way too much time in front of the computer. But anywho, let's get back to the original question.
Yeah.
And can you restate it so I can get back on track?
It was the tricky one. It was like, how do you
Oh, how do you prioritize it?
know which tasks to automate or
Mm-hmm.
work on first? Yeah, that gets you the best results.
So they're kind of constantly changing, right? At least in
Yeah,
my heating and air conditioning company, there would be problems that would come to a head only when we were extremely busy. And maybe a problem that would happen, recurring problem that would happen every shoulder season or every slower season during heating tune-ups. So from my quality engineering days, after we solved a problem, we used to go and do a, um, a task called lessons learned, which was how did this happen and how could we prevent it from happening again?
yeah,
And and so what I would do is I'd say, okay, last heating season, it went from a hot summer to a cold winter very quickly, and we weren't ready with the right materials in the trucks, and that caused a lot of unnecessary trips to our distributor. And so we needed to have those materials in the trucks by such and such date. And so I went and put on my calendar for September 1st, 2025. So next year, I would have a
yeah,
calendar appointment that says, make sure you have your heating stock ready. And
yeah.
that was the lesson learned from the previous year.
And that's an
So
automation of sorts,
it
right?
is kind of an
That
automation, just
yeah,
knowing that I would see that a year
yeah,
from now. And so in my phone, I keep notes of lessons learned and uh, and usually they're kind of seasonal, they recur, and try not to make those, try to understand why it happened and what I could do to fix it, and then put a timeline of when I'm going to fix it and give myself an
yeah.
appointment of when to do it. Right.
Yeah, I think one of the benefits of automation and reporting and just stuff like making appointments for yourself is just you don't need, as the business owner, you don't need that mental load anymore in your head, right? You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to remember everything, and it adds stress, and it versus just
Yeah.
write it down, right? It's as simple as that can really help out.
Some of those problems go away as you get busier or slower,
Yeah,
and that doesn't mean you fixed them. It just means that they're they're not happening right now. So
yeah,
a lot of times problems only happen when you're at capacity, right?
yeah,
As far as prioritization of leads, that only happen if you generate excess leads, which is typically in the busy season.
yeah,
And so when people call, you're gonna pretty much go to every job. And in the summer, you can't do that, right? So
yeah,
I've always tried to do the lessons learned, and I've also asked my employees. I'll ask them at the end of the summer what we could have done better, and try to capture that knowledge right when it's happening, rather than trying to fix it
yeah,
later. And another thing I look at when I'm looking at projects to do is I look at it and I say, okay, how big of a project, how big of a problem is this to solve? And will I get any benefit until I completely solve the whole entire thing? Right.
yeah,
So, for example, if you're putting together your bookkeeping and income statement and you do 80% of that, then you don't have accurate data to be able to measure and make business decisions, right?
Yeah.
That has to be 100% done to get
Yeah.
any benefit
All or
from it.
nothing. Yeah.
It's 100% or nothing. So, but training your technicians to communicate better with customers, that project will never be done, but every bit of time you put into it gets some result out of it. Right. So I
Yeah.
try to look at that and really understand, if I'm going to take this project on, am I going to be able to, do I have the resources, which people, time, money, to see this all the way through? And if I don't, then I have to pass on it. Right. And
Yeah.
so I think that what happens is a lot of business owners have tons of half started projects. And if they just took all that together,
Yeah.
10 half started projects, and had 2 fully completed ones, they would be a lot better off.
Yeah. Or make sure there's some sort of incremental benefits. Like,
Yeah.
even if I don't finish the automation, at least I have a useful report, beforehand or
Have
something like that,
have
right?
some milestones, right?
Yeah.
Break it down to make it reasonable project, and like I'll think of some as we go on.
That's okay. So,
Yeah.
so you've mentioned AI a bit. We talked about the pre-AI era, and
Yeah.
now, since 2022 or 23, whenever that, ChatGPT really shook
Mhm.
up things, it's changed a lot from what we've seen. I mean,
Mhm.
we've got some AI modules and things we
Mhm.
use. I'm sure there's some things that you use and that you guys plan to use in your own product as well.
Mhm.
How do you see the technology landscape playing out over the next couple of years? What is some cool stuff we're going to see and be able to do? Do you believe the hype on AI, or is there something else that's going to emerge, you think, that you've seen?
Well, I do believe the hype to an extent. I think that I think prompt engineering right now is still kind of important. So if you know what you want the end result to be, you're going to get
Yeah.
better information, a better response out of the AI. But I have seen it become better even with the lack of knowledge of talking to it. It has gotten much better in the last year since I started using it. The new models are much better, and I see I see this as being the way that a small business can compete with larger companies.
Yeah.
I mean, more than ever. The only way you could do it before is have a lot of money, have a very unique service or product, have the resources, which is money, to have a lot of people to throw at it. But we were talking about how you're going to take this podcast and chop them up into shorts, right?
Yeah.
Into 30
This
second
might be a
clips and stuff
short
like
right
that.
now.
It could be, yeah. How we chop this up? Well, what do you have, a software that can do it for $20 a month?
Yeah.
Well, that's crazy, because what would that have taken 5 years ago is finding somebody with the skills who knew how to use something like Final Cut or whatever, and add the captions and make them good. I mean, this is something that I think levels out the playing field for a smaller contractor who can use it correctly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this might not be popular, but make no mistake about it, you're going to be able to have 5 times less staff in your office to complete the same amount of work that you had before,
Yeah.
with utilizing AI and automation. So for as far as like the human element of that, and I'm a little conflicted about that, with the fact that, a lot of these AI and automations can do jobs better than a human and infinitely cheaper. And so these larger companies are going to have to make the decision to lay off staff, but smaller companies will just not have to hire them in the first place. So they
Yeah.
can we had just with basic automations pre AI, we were, gosh, over $3 million with one person in the office,
Yeah.
one staff. I mean, and that wasn't possible before the technology being utilized, right? So it's just going to make these really forward thinking smaller companies a lot more profitable, and they'll be able to scale a lot
Yeah.
better, right?
I mean, that's our sales pitch to our customers. A lot of the time, it's like, well, you're going to pay someone to do this, or for a fraction of the cost, you can automate a lot of
Yeah.
things. But I do feel a bit bad sometimes if someone is going to
Hmm.
lose their job. But I do think, if it can help us and the employees, everyone, to
Hmm.
move on from, stop working in the business and rather on the business, that
Hmm.
that old saying. And stop with the busy work. If you're just
Hmm.
doing busy
Yeah.
work all day, is that really a way to
Yeah.
live? So I mean, it allows the owners and even the admin staff to do more creative things. So think of
Hmm.
ways to grow the business, make the business better, make someone's day, do amazing things.
Hmm.
So I think that's the kind of a nice way to frame it. But definitely, I think there are big changes, coming with this stuff.
There's going to be people that have skills that AI is going to it's going to be better, faster, and cheaper than the skills they have, and a company cannot employ them and maintain profitability. You won't have a choice because it once you're a contractor down the street does it, he can spend more money on customer acquisition costs than you can, and
Yeah,
the whole ship will go down, right? So if I'm able to get rid of a admin staff member and all in fully burdened with taxes and benefits and all that, they're $70,000 a year, and I'm able to turn this into something that's maybe $1,000 a year. That kind of difference where
yeah,
you save that kind of money. It's almost never been happened before where you could save that level of money um, that
yeah.
easily, right?
We're
Well, if you've got another $69,000 and you put that into marketing, you're going to be able to get more customers. And the guy down the street who's hanging on to that employee because he feels bad, both that employee and the company are going to go down, right?
Yeah, it's
Which is
interesting.
tough.
Yeah,
It's
it's
tough to talk
interesting.
about it.
Yeah, I know. But we see business owners now, like who come to us and they want to build a new business, and they say we want it as automated as possible from day one. So we've had a
Hmm.
client who used Wink in one of their businesses, and then they saw a gap in the market where, I mean, they were doing electrical things, and so they saw a gap. Like they're here in Australia, and they do
Hmm.
smoke alarm inspections, and there's some new laws that came in that rental properties need, every 6 months an inspection, which is great for
Hmm.
them.
Yeah.
And they're like, wow, this is such a bulk business. Like they just want to go find all the property managers out there and offer
Hmm.
like a subscription service to just go do this, because this is
Hmm.
something that they don't really want to deal with. And they said, hey, we've seen what you can do. Tell us how to configure ServiceTitan or ServiceMate or whatever they're using. Tell us how to configure that so that we can build a 95% automated business from
Hmm.
day one. And we sat down with them and we figured it all out. And
Yeah.
yeah, they run this huge business with one admin person who just makes sure, the cogs are turning, like you say. It's quite incredible where things are
It
going.
really is.
Yeah.
You take
I,
your top 10 or 20% of staff, and they end up just monitoring these automations, and
yeah,
they really help you create the processes in the first place, right?
correct.
Because it all starts with the process starts with a human who knows what they're doing
Yeah,
telling the AI, well, automations are more instruction and rules based, and AI can kind of think for itself. It's still more automation than it is AI. I think that we call it AI just like we call one of those single wheel things a hoverboard. It's not
Not
really
really. Yeah, exactly.
AI,
Yeah,
because if it's really AI, it can pretty much,
yeah,
it would be what I asked it to do wouldn't really matter. It would guide me more. It would say, no, I don't
yeah.
think you want that. You don't know what you're talking about. Here's what you really want, right? But if we take, like, for example, there's a lady I've worked with for a long time, Lynn Wise, and she owns Contractor in Charge, and
Hmm.
they provide a call center, an outsourced call center, and they also do really good job with bookkeeping and accounting. But we were talking about it when ChatGPT first came out, and I said, "You have a you have some staff there, the call center manager of all the CSRs, who knows everything about how to answer a call, and say ask the right questions, show empathy, all that." I said, if you have her training an AI agent, that is going to be um, that's going to be replicated every time that AI agent engages with a customer. So
Yeah.
right now, it still started with a human, right? With a person who knew what they were doing, an
An
expert
expert. Yeah,
talking
domain
to,
expert. Yeah,
yeah, the main expert, right? So when somebody says I want to automate everything, well, you can't automate something you are not really good at doing in the first place.
yeah,
Automation just takes something you're good at doing and makes it really fast and
yeah,
accurate, right?
yeah.
So,
Yeah,
um,
we do a lot
yeah.
of we do a lot of reports, like those error reports you were talking about. We now have
Mhm.
decision reports that we have.
Yeah.
So as the automations and AI does stuff, it will pop up a report of specific actions that need a human to just tick
Hmm.
a box to approve it. So it has all the
Yeah.
information there. You don't have to go do it and check it, but you can just say like it might check a vendor invoice and say, "Hey, this number is different from what's in your price
Hmm.
book. Are you okay with us just going ahead with it?" And you just tick like, "No, no, I want to update it," or "No, ignore
Hmm.
it," or whatever, and then it goes. But yeah, so there is a human that can still make that decision,
Yeah.
but you get all the benefits of automation. With
I think
that.
it'll be a while before you don't have before you trust it
No,
enough
exactly.
to not have a human involved.
You need
Because if
that
you trust it to
gateway.
that
Exactly.
level, you're saying I'm willing to bet the entire success of my company on this AI doing it. I think that setting it up so an expert reviews it is always great. Like the other day for OnePath, I put together, I use this Sprout Social, which
Yep.
is a way to post content to multiple marketing channels. And I worked with ChatGPT back and forth to create 30 days of content. And I did it in about 2 hours, 30 days of content.
Wow.
But I had to
Yeah.
go back and forth with ChatGPT and say,
Yeah.
no, this isn't what I wanted. No, a little bit more like this. And I've put in what our brand message is into it. I've trained it to do that. So it's just a great assistant that gets you 90% there. And to
Yeah.
get to 100%, you have to have that skill to get that last 10%,
Yeah.
right? And that's what it's enabled me to do is create that much content that quickly.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I scripted out this podcast with
mhm.
ChatGPT, right?
Yeah,
But I've got a prompt that I've been fine tuning, and I give it some of your
yeah.
information, some of our information, and we're
I'll
not
tell you
following it
something
slavishly, but I've got it open here on the side. But
something crazy.
it's a good framework, right? Actually, you were
I
saying,
had
oh, sorry,
I
go.
had ChatGPT write my entire business prospectus when I went to sell it. I said,
Wow,
then the prompt was, I own this residential heating and air conditioning company in Columbus, Ohio. Here's the website. Um, I want you to look through my website, and here's my financials. So I uploaded PDFs of my financials, and I want you to write a business prospectus so that when an investor reads it, they would be interested in buying it. And 17 pages. It wrote 17 pages for me.
wow,
And
and
of
you
course,
sold
I
it.
did have to make some edits, but My gosh, was it really good? And it caught some things that I would have only caught if I mean, gosh, some of the things in the financials it
Yeah,
came back with of like, what do you want to say about this and everything?
yeah.
It's like having a great assistant.
And it sometimes brings up things that you didn't even consider, right? Where you go like, wow,
Hmm.
that's a great angle for that, you know.
Yeah,
So
right. I'm trying to figure out a name for the podcast that I'm going to put together. I didn't want to use One Path as a name for a podcast. That just,
yeah,
I don't know. I want something a little bit more engaging than
a
that.
bit more
I've
zingy.
been
Yeah,
back and forth with it for a long time, but it's just I do a lot of brainstorming with it. But I have my history on ChatGPT, and
yeah,
you the randomness of the questions that are asked, and my wife shares the same ChatGPT account on her phone, and so a lot of it is questions of I'll see something come up that says, "Why does my dog look at me this way?" It's kind of like, oh, okay, so we've almost it's almost like the new Google for us,
yeah.
without the ads.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm about to go on a vacation tomorrow.
Mhm.
And I know on our previous trip, for instance, you know, we asked ChatGPT stuff like, well, what are some great activities to do in Japan and with a 10-year-old daughter who likes anime and likes Pikachu and likes this and whatever,
Mhm.
and it just gives you an itinerary and some really great
It's
ideas.
crazy.
It's insane. It's so good. I mean,
Well,
before this call, sorry,
I started with what I really got to learn it better is I'm kind of a curious person in general, and I
yeah,
just started asking questions that I wonder if it can do this, right?
hmm
So when I was solving problems, trying to solve problems in my company, solve problems I had with ServiceTitan, I just was like, I wonder if it can do this. And the answer is usually it can if you give it a good amount of information, you know what you want to see at the end.
yeah. I mean, you could get all recursive and like, hey, ChatGPT, what would be a good prompt if you wanted to
Mhm.
do
I
X,
did.
right?
I had it write image generation prompts.
Prompts,
So
yeah,
when it did, I don't like Dolly, their image generator. It looks kind of goofy to me,
yeah,
OpenAI's. But what I found is Canva has something called Dreamlab, which does a great job, but I don't know how to describe an image like
yep,
the way that AI can describe it. Like I'm just not like I've seen like film students analyze films and it's like I don't even see that in a scene of
gotcha,
what
yeah.
they're seeing. And so I
Talking about
had
tone and whatever, you know.
yeah, what is this? Like, this is the angle they have and the lighting. I'm like, I have no idea what they're even talking about, but that all makes sense.
Yeah,
So, ChatGPT helped me. I said, I need prompts for Mid Journey because I was using Mid Journey, which creates images. And it would give me like a whole paragraph prompt based upon the content, social posts that I had. And then I put it into Mid Journey and then eventually into Dreamlab, and it would generate the images and it was man, it was awesome. So you'll see a lot of really nice creative doing that, but ultimately it will teach you how to use it if you engage with
yeah.
it back and
Which is
forth.
useful in marketing, right? I mean, you can
Hmm.
ask it how to generate
Hmm.
a good post, you know, and I mean,
Yeah.
those are the guys who are, content writing. Is the Other guys who were worried first about
Hmm.
ChatGPT. So
I've
I mean,
tried
you,
the AI avatars where, I would record a video. I would just take, I recorded like a 2-minute video, talking head video like this,
yeah,
and you put it into like a product called HeyGen. And I believe Descript also does that. And then you give it just a transcript and it will actually look like you're um, read it or like actually saying what you the transcript you gave it to them, and it's close but I can still tell it's AI. In the future those things will be indiscernible. I mean, maybe within a year.
yeah,
Same with videos. Like videos you will see are not real videos. So I think that a lot of content creators and things out there will not be real. I can tell now if they're not real, but it's hard to tell now, and it will be very difficult later to tell
Well,
whether or not it's real.
this software, Riverside, that we're using
Hmm.
for recording the podcast, it has a feature where you can do all your editing on the text. And I mean, that's not so new in
Yeah,
video editing software these days. You just delete this text and it will cut
right.
automatically, and you just do that. But you can correct text and you can add text, and it will fill in with your voice and
It's
mouth
something else.
movements. Like if you put a different word in, it will adapt my face and my
Mm,
voice to say that. I mean, before this call even started, you were saying if you, and we were talking about Riverside, you were saying now when you look for new software, you always check the AI features first, right?
100%. Yeah. You go, how can I, how quickly can I sign up for this software and start getting the full benefit out of it? Right.
Yeah.
So when I saw something like ServiceTitan, where it's like, yeah, it takes a year to get going and really understand it, that isn't working for me anymore. I need a day or two where I feel like I'm getting most of this, or I get impatient and I try something different.
Yeah.
So AI has helped really with onboarding. It's helped a lot.
Yeah.
It'll just do things for you, right?
Yeah.
So I look at when I look at software, I look at what's the least amount of time I need to spend onboarding for this thing.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, on that note, actually, Wink, we just got authorized by ServiceTitan. We'll be the first technology partner who's also a expert consulting partner. We've got that approval
Nice.
now, and so we're going to start using some of our tech to help with the onboarding process. Right, like
Mm.
we've helped a client recently with some of our tools to just they want to from ServiceMate that you used to use, they migrated to
Hmm.
ServiceTitan, and we can do that in a couple of hours, not like
Yeah.
months, as people
I
say.
mean,
So,
you guys will
um,
provide that consistency that
yeah,
ServiceTitan can't have because they have those customer success managers and those that's kind of more of an entry level position where those people cycle out a lot and
yeah,
uh, hiring someone like Wink to get that data in, you guys know the ServiceTitan's API so well that you'll be able to speed up that onboarding
yeah.
process a
And we know
lot.
the other systems as well. So it's
Hmm.
just
Yeah, right.
pull it in, push it out, or do some kind of matching in the
Sure.
middle. Bill, we've gone way over time already, but it's been so great talking
I'll
to
talk
you.
about this stuff all day,
All
man.
day. I know we will talk all day if we keep going.
Mhm.
So I think we might call it a day there, but
Yeah,
we'll probably definitely do another one of these at some point soon, and then just continue the conversation. So
yeah.
just again for people, where's the best place they can find you? Now's your time to plug whatever you want to plug.
So the best place to find me is on Facebook. So I
Hmm.
have my personal profile, and then also I'd recommend joining the Service Titan Hacks group. I post a
Yep.
lot of valuable content in there and tips and tricks of things that I've learned over the years with automations. And it's not always Service Titan related. It's just pretty much anything that I think of that I've learned in my business of things that I've done that are successful or things that I've done that cost me a lot of time and money and just post a lot of content. So Facebook's the best place to find me.
Awesome. Well, thanks for your time, Bill, and
Thanks, Johan.
we'll see you soon again.
All
Bye.
right, man. Yeah.